The following audio recording has been designed for learning purposes only. Do not share, distribute, or provide any type of copies, or this audio lesson will not be made available to you. Good luck with today's lesson.
If you got feedback that says you got 10 out of 10, I tried to put the score in there. I tried to remember to put, if you got 10 out of 10, it says you're all set and you got 10 out of 10 or something like that. It's not going to get posted until after the due date, which is this Thursday. Remember, if you haven't done it yet, it's due this Thursday, the course introduction assignment. If I sent something back to you that might have said you were kind of weak on your hardware or software response, you might want to respond to me prior to the deadline. I'll still give you the credit for it. I usually like to give everybody a second chance on that first one, just to think through how hardware and software is used in your chosen career. Just kind of get you adapted to the course. If you don't email me though up until like getting really close to the deadline, I'm just going to grade it on the one-time basis. But probably by sometime tomorrow, whenever I cut off catching up with them and stuff, after that, up to that point, I'll give you a second chance. So check your emails. If it says you're 10 out of 10, you're all set to go. Just a reminder that is due. That's the only thing due this week. And I just want to get back to taking a look at this Windows study guide. Did anybody lose theirs or forget their study guide that we were working on last Thursday? Okay, I do have 2 extras or so up here. Just as a quick review of what we did do, we talked about the fact the start menu can be used to have, you can access your programs, but you can also pin some tiles out there that make quick, easy access to frequently used programs rather than having to navigate to find it or use a search. So the tiles feature is nice. What happened to me there?
You said there's extra study guide?
Yeah. There we go. Did I give you the lab? Sorry.
Good.
Here it is. There we go.
Thank you.
Yep. Apparently my projectors took a dive on me here. See if it stays up now. I got a message yesterday that they need to replace the bulb, so hopefully we can live through the day. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about that we can pin tiles to the start menu. Number 2, we looked at the fact that you should be aware that this thing's called a taskbar down here at the bottom. There's also a feature called the Task Manager, which you can access through Control-Shift-Escape. That's a 3-finger keystroke. It'll automatically open up Task Manager. The reason Task Manager is beneficial is if you have a program that's not responding, whether it's a regular application or your browser, and it's just sitting there doing nothing, it says not responding up in the title bar, it can sometimes not only lock the application up, but the entire machine can essentially, in IT terms they call it brought to its knees. It's just begging for mercy, can't get anything out of it, and sometimes if you can't get the problem corrected, you have to hold in the power button for 4 seconds to power down your machine, which is not advisable if you can avoid it. sometimes it's unavoidable and you have to do it. But it can damage your hard drive potentially, so by using Task Manager, we talked about, you can do a Control-Shift-Escape, find the guilty culprit, whether it's your browser or other application, and then kill it by just doing an end task. Hopefully after you can kill it, it will free up your memory and your machine will become running efficiently again, and therefore you don't have to shut down hard and risk your hard drive. So it's a good feature to know about as well. On the taskbar, we talked about the notification area, the value down there, you know, your Wi-Fi connectivity, sound, antivirus notifications are always big down there. I had you guys write down a few of those. Access to our removable drives, safely remove, which isn't actually necessary with a drive nowadays, but it's also a feature there that gives people some comfort and security. Anyways, a few things there, just be aware of. The last thing we did before we left was we right-clicked on this PC and we chose properties. And when we did that, we were able to see our random access memory and processor speed of our machine. And just as a quick review there too, we went out here, right-clicked on this PC, we said properties from the shortcut menu, and that gives me all the information I need about the basics of my machine. I've got Windows 10 Enterprise installed, and I have a processor of Intel Core i3, which is considered a high-end processor, but it's at the low end of the high-end spec. 3.6 gigahertz, 8 gigabyte installed memory. It's a 64-bit operating system. It tells us if there's pen or touch available for this display. There's a computer name assigned to it. If it's your home computer, you might just have your name on it or something. Here at the college, South Campus 238, and then there's a designated random number that they've assigned to it, which is probably unique, either campus or college-wide. Windows has been activated. Before the end of the unit, I want to just mention product activation. You do have to activate your product before you can use it. Otherwise, there's a 30-day limitation. And sometimes if you don't do that, it'll just kind of tank out on you until you actually go out and activate it. Number 5, we haven't gotten to, I don't believe, right? That's where we left off?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. This PC, so we're dealing with this PC again. It says open this PC. So instead of right-clicking and going to properties, this time I'm actually just going to launch it. Or click on it to activate it. So I click on it, and this is what I see here, my drives. So it says I got a local disk, C drive. It tells me there's a DVD drive, which is my D. I've plugged in 2 of my USB sticks. One of them is my one I made for class with you guys Thursday. The other one is my go-to drive with everything on it. And you can see that those drives came in as E and F after D. So if we go back to this is kind of hypothetical. It's just to kind of get you thinking of how the drive letters lay out. So using the list provided, write the drive letter that would most commonly be associated with each device. And as you can see from what I just showed you, the flash drive is probably going to be out of those letters. A, C, D, F, or S? F. However, D is not that bad of an answer because if there's no DVD drive on the machine, it would appear as a D.
I said E.
Oh, did you? E? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm saying just from this list, though, here. So in the hypothetical list. So F is your, most likely your flash drive out of those when you plug it in. The reason being, well, I don't want to give it all away yet. Let's go through them and then we'll talk about it. Storage location for F is it local? Is it LAN, which stands for local area network, or is it a removable? Removable. So it's portable or removable storage. The second one here Local area network.
Oh, okay. So my flash drive name is like E, so it's not on that option. So do I have to just put E?
Put what I've got up here. If out of these hypothetical letters, most likely that drive letter is going to be associated with. So in other words, F is most likely associated with a flash drive that you've plugged in. Most likely. The map network drive, A, C, D, F, or S. Anybody use mapped network drives? Yeah? You probably have for sure, and especially if you haven't been out of K through 12 schools too long, because they had drives for people. A lot of students had their own drives in K through 12 institutions now, where you can store your own personal stuff on their drive. It's going to be S. I'll show you here. I'll demonstrate for you. And it's a mapped network drive, so it's a local area network drive, so it's LAN. And this is how that works. So if I go over here to this PC and I right click on it, instead of going to properties like we did a minute ago, if I go to this thing that says map a network drive, you can click that. And the first thing that it does is it wants to give you the highest letter in the alphabet to map your drive to, which is Z. So mapped drives by default work their way backwards from Z on up back to the higher alphabet letters, or the A through F type areas. So if I click the drop down arrow on the Z, I could map my network drive to any one of these drive letters. Most businesses start no lower in the alphabet than H when they map a drive. So like I've actually got an H drive at my work. We've also got a P drive that they have assigned to specific things. Macomb previously had several drives that they had assigned, and they got rid of all of them like last year. So what is a mapped network drive? It's a network location that you can store stuff at the company, either the college, the company. And it looks like this. It gives you an example. There's a server name, and then there's a share name, and then after that you have like a bunch of files or folders and files. Just like on your regular USB drive, it's got like a file path where you can locate the file through a bunch of folders and then finally to a file location. Well, let's say you work at a company and part of your job, maybe you're in marketing or something, and they have a bunch of marketing stuff out on a share, and it's about 3 folders deep. Instead of having to go to the share location and then try to find the drive all the time, or try to find the folder all the time by navigating to it, I could just take one of these drive letters, I could type in the path that I want, and then I can say, okay, finish. If I leave this box checked to reconnect it, sign in, it'll go directly out there. The next time I sign in too on my machine, I'll have that drive letter. Let's say I signed it, the one that we had here, S. So now my S drive becomes my marketing drive where I can just go to those folders. So it's a time-saving tool at work to be able to map a drive. I just want you to understand where the location is too. It's out on the local area network. So it would be a network supplied locally by your company. It wouldn't be out in the cloud. It'd be something locally. So like on this campus, somewhere between here and Center Campus, or at both campuses, they have network components that have drives in them and storage data stored out on those drives that can be accessible to people with the permissions to do so. The next one here, the hard disk drive, out of these letters is most likely C. And your C drive resides right in your box that's sitting next to you guys here, so it's what they consider local storage. So the answer on the storage location is local. And then the DVD drive would most likely be, we saw that a minute ago too, D. And this one's a little bit of a trick question here because the drive itself is physically embedded or screwed into your machine, most likely. So in that case, it's a local drive. However, I'm going to put slash. You can actually pull the DVD diskette out. Or, you know, if it's a Blu-ray or whatever, it can be pulled out. So I'm going to say removable as well as local. The drive is local, but the media is removable. And then I want to explain this, so it takes a little bit of history to explain the whole thing. When they first came out with personal computers, and I don't know if you want to say I'm lucky enough or I'm old enough to experience this. When they first came out with the personal computers, the first one that I ever experienced was in the 1970s. They didn't have any drives on them at all. It was just memory. And then shortly thereafter, or almost simultaneously, that I can recall anyways in my dim memory, I was only, the first one that I saw was, I was like 10 years old. They had a floppy diskette, and they designated that the A drive, the first letter in the alphabet, because it was the only storage drive outside of the memory that you could have. So you could store something and save it, instead of, if it was only in memory, you lost it, just like today. If you shut your machine down and you haven't saved anything, you lose the file.
Quick question. So you said the drive was local and the media was removable?
Correct, for the DVD. So then they were like, this happened for a very short time. They decided, you know, some people were saying, hey, we want to copy the save files from one diskette to another. So they came out with the B drive, and they had 2 floppy drives. And these were the larger floppies back in the day. And they literally were floppy, like you just could flop them around. So you had to be careful with them. Plus they're magnetic, so they can easily be destroyed or damaged. Well, shortly after they had the A and B, it was like somebody wisely said, this is silly. Why don't we have a hard drive that we've got permanent storage on? We can put all kinds of stuff out there. You can still offload things to your A drive, and we're just going to get rid of the B drive. So the B drive letter is almost never been used. I think there was like a few year period that it was actually used at all, and that's why you never see B. Then in 2010 they quit making floppies, and before that they were kind of going out of style many years before that. I'd say by 2005 at the latest they were kind of going out of style. So the A drive almost disappeared as well. So we've essentially been starting our drive letters at C ever since for our hard drive that still exists. Then we added a CD drive because the CD drive was added, you know, after the fact. After the hard drive, it comes in the next highest letter, which is D. Of course, if you were to add another drive, maybe you had a DVD and a CD, you'd have a D and an E. But any unused drive, if you pop in, by default this is, if you pop in your USB flash drive, it'll fall into the next highest drive letter. You can change settings and stuff and such, but. And then of course we talked about the map network drive comes from the highest letter down, so that's why I just put a kind of a high alphabet letter there to memorize that. So for like a quiz question, I might have a question like, what most likely would this drive letter be associated with? What type of device? Would it be a local area network map drive? If it was S, yes it would be. You know, if I say C drive is most likely a LAN drive, then you know it's a false statement, so just kind of know that. There is a note up here for techies too. A assume there's only one hard drive and it's not partitioned, you can actually logically partition a hard drive too into separate letters, which isn't done too often, but it can be done, and that can throw a monkey wrench into this concept as well. Number 6, dealing with this PC still, in File Explorer, that's our yellow folder, right-click Drive C and choose Properties. So I've now clicked on this PC, I've got my local disk C here, I'm going to right-click on it and I'm going to choose Properties. And it tells me some details about the drive. And then Windows tend to give you a donut chart. My used space on here, 129 gigabyte. Free space is 335 gig. I've roughly got a 500 gig drive in there, which is half a terabyte. We're going to talk about sizes and stuff as we go through the first unit here. So when you're looking for a PC, that's going to be one of our objectives towards the end of the unit, is to be able to go out to a store and have some knowledge about what you're buying. This drive is probably about a 500 gig drive, so it's about a half a terabyte, and we've used up about a quarter of it, as we can see from the donut chart here. So we have a lot of free space left. As far as the question goes, your machine may be slightly different than mine. I'm going to answer it. It says how much free space is left on disk C. Mine is 335 gigabyte. The more important thing for your quiz is how did you get that information. You could right click Drive C and choose Properties, so you might want to just notate that in my question there. So if I ask you how to get the details on the drive, I mean, you can also sometimes just click on the drive and just look and see detail or see information about it, but not the detailed information. Number 7, dealing with your desktop. How do you change your desktop background or screensaver? So I've got my window open here, and down here in the lower right by my clock, it's hard to see here on this screen here, but there's a little rectangle just to the right of that, and that's what they call the Show Desktop button. Very narrow rectangle. I'm going to go down to that, and I'm going to click it, and it minimizes everything that's on my screen. If I got 20 windows open, it'll minimize all 20. So it immediately allows me to see my desktop directly. And then if I right click on my desktop and I choose Personalize, the Show Desktop, it's to the right of your clock down there in the lower right corner. There's a little rectangle. Alright, so I did right click on the desktop, I did Personalize. It brings me up my settings for my background. Because we're at Macomb, the organization has managed some of our settings, and it tells us there in red some settings are hidden or managed by your organization. So you see these are grayed out here. If it's your personal device, that's probably not the case. You can change your picture to whatever you want for your background. I do it all the time on my personal device. But here, they want to keep everything blue, and they don't want anybody putting any other different backgrounds out there, so they've grayed it out, and they've locked that feature down for us. There are some things that they didn't gray out. If I go to the lock screen option here, which is down on the left-hand side, it's kind of similar, except for this. It's what picture is going to appear when your screen locks after a certain amount of minutes or time has elapsed. So I could browse and choose the lock screen picture, whatever I want. And if I scroll down here to the bottom, You can also do a screensaver. So I'll go to the screensaver settings. And Macomb has a default here too. It's this 3D text, MCC, and it just kind of rolls around like that, and it appears after 10 minutes have elapsed. So after 10 minutes of inactivity, that thing will appear. And that'll happen to me during class a few times. You know, we'll be talking, we might have a lab session going on, and during open lab sometimes when I'm helping students out in the lab, this thing will appear. And it's because 10 minutes of inactivity has occurred. Now I'm not forced into that here because they do allow me to change it. Instead of the 3D text, I could go to ribbons, which is going to give me something like that after 10 minutes. I could also go to the bubbles. So just some things to experience on screensavers. Power settings can also be managed. You can delve very deep into Windows. This is why, what is it, ITOS 1310 is a class offered at Macomb. You can spend an entire semester just dealing with how Windows functions. And it helps you get into a desktop support role if you're interested in IT work. So the answer to this question here, how do you change your desktop background or screensaver? You could go different methods, by the way. I'm just showing you one way to do this. Right-click the desktop, choose Personalize, and modify the appropriate setting. Whether that's screensaver, the background, the lock screen, whatever you want it to happen to modify at the time. So right-click the desktop, choose Personalize, and modify the appropriate setting was the answer to 7. Number 8, dealing with your mouse and keyboard. We just right-clicked the desktop and we got a shortcut menu. We've also right-clicked on this PC, gotten a shortcut menu for that. When you right-click an object, you've noticed then that you get a menu specific to that object. There's a term used to describe why the menu is unique in IT terms. Does anybody happen to know that term? That's kind of an obscure term for some people. And most of my students don't, so I was really surprised. I had one guy that actually knew it yesterday. None of my fall classes knew it. It's called context sensitive. And I really think this is an important term, so I'm also going to just write it up here for clarification. So when you right click, it's sensitive to the context that you're in. So it knows that you're on the desktop. It knows that you're on this PC. Context, if you talk about it like in language terms, like you can use a word in a certain context and it means something different in another context. So if that helps you to associate what we're talking about here. When we're working on assignments, one of the easiest things to associate this with is when we start Word here, we're going to click on a picture, and you get a menu specific to that picture. If you either right-click on it or you left-click on it, you get a menu at the top in Word that's specific to organizing or managing, changing pictures, adding color, or whatever. So that's also called a context-sensitive menu. So many things we're going to do in this course is context sensitive. And if it's something simple, it's easy to make sense out of it. Like I was saying, the picture, you click on it to get access to a menu that you can do something with the picture. If you want to copy and paste text, you can't paste it until you've copied it. So the paste button is going to be grayed out if you haven't copied anything. That's also called context sensitivity. It gets more complex when you get into databases, and it doesn't make as much sense because you don't use databases as much, but the same idea applies. Like I've had people that are not in the correct database field or in the correct context to do something in a field, and they'll be like, I don't understand why this isn't appearing. It's the same idea. So just try to always carry that forward, and a lot of times it helps out when you get into the database area too. Just try to remember the simple stuff. So context sensitivity, big in information technology and all these software packages. 8B, what keyboard key can be used in conjunction with the mouse to select multiple non-adjacent files or adjacent files? Now the term adjacent means together.
Non-adjacent is control, adjacent is shift.
Perfect. Perfect answer. Thank you. So control for non-adjacent, and my control key on my keyboard just says CTRL, so I'm going to type it out that way. Adjacent is the shift key. And I'm going to demonstrate that. So on my drive where I have like labs and projects, I've got a bunch of Word files and I got a bunch of PDF files. The PDF files are the red logo. So if I want to select all my PDF files, and I could of course organize it in a PDF if I wanted to and do it that way too, but let's say I had this list just like this. If I click on the first one and then I hold down the control key and then click on the next red one and I keep holding control, I can select all of the PDF files, and they have like that light blue shading. That means they're selected. And now instead of doing them one at a time, let's say I wanted to copy all these, I can just right click any one of the selected items. I could say copy, and then I could paste it to another area. I could drag and drop them. So I can do multiple things with, or do one thing with multiple objects by just control clicking everything. That's what's called non-adjacent or non-contiguous selection. And then the shift key, if I wanted to select, let's say, let's go down here and do all of our Word assignments. So the one that starts with Word here, I could click the first one and then hold down shift and click the last one. Anything then in that area is selected, and that's a contiguous or an adjacent selection by clicking this one and then shift clicking the bottom. It selects everything in between. Another way that you can do that is actually to go slightly to the, I usually go slightly to the left of the first item I want, and then I just left drag like a box like that, and it'll actually do a contiguous or adjacent selection as well. But it's good to know that the shift key can function in that capacity. So those are two keys that not only can be used in Windows again, but also in all the applications we're going to be going forward with. Number 9, in a Windows environment, a file can be opened using something or from within the something. Well, the first part of this answer is exactly what I was using here. That yellow folder is known as, what's that?
A folder.
This PC.
File Explorer. That's the correct term for it. So File Explorer is the first answer to that one. Or if I go to File Explorer, by the way, if I go here and I wanted to launch one of these things, let's say the PowerPoint lab, which is not going to happen to us till April. And I opened up that. It opened up Microsoft Word because it was a Word document. It knew how to do that because of its file association through its file extension. But if I didn't want to go from there, I could also first open, in other words, if I still wanted to open PowerPoint Lab, but I didn't want to go from File Explorer here, what else could I do? Simple stuff. You could, but you're still actually using File Explorer in that method. You could open the application. So you could actually open Word first. So the second part of 9A is or from within the application. So 9A is in Windows environment, a file can be opened using File Explorer or from within the application. So I would launch Word first, and then once I've got Word launched, I could go up to the File menu. I could say Open, browse for the file, and then I could locate that PowerPoint lab or whatever through here and then open it up. Because I'm in Word, Word filters to only all Word documents. It won't let you open up an Excel document, for instance, or something else that's not, or at least something that can't be opened with Word. There's other things that can be opened with Word, like PDFs, TXT files, but it has to be something that's compatible in some form or whatever with a word processing editor. So yes, and then I wanted to follow up with your thought there. I could go down here to search, like if I don't know, and I could try to find a file there, but I'm still launching it through a Windows-based component that way, so I still am relying on the file extension. I could also go out to DOS and type in a command and do stuff from there too. So there's lots of ways, but the two main ways that you'd open a file, the simple ways, are what I'm focusing on in that question. 9B, imagine you can't find a file on your USB flash drive, but you remember it contains the word campus. So there's a search box down here, Cortana, that we've been using, but there's also one in File Explorer. So going back to File Explorer here, and I'm going to go to my drive that we created. Let's say there's a file in there that has the word campus in it. I'm on my drive. There's a search box up here that says you can search, and it says your drive letter. So if I search in that box right there, it's going to search only my drive. I can switch that location by simply clicking where I want here, so I could actually search my hard drive too if I wanted to. But since I probably figure it might be on my USB, for this hypothetical situation, I'm going to pretend that I'm looking for something that has the word campus in it. So I type out campus in the search box up here, and two things appear. The word that I typed is highlighted in yellow, campus. And it came up with a Word document called Campus Safety Guide and a JPEG or an image file of a campus. So if I had been looking for my Campus Safety Guide, I've just located it. And then it tells me where it's located at on the drive. It's under the Berkeley K Labs Word Labs folder. So if you forget where you've saved a file, that's one good way to try to find it when you're working through this course. Another thing you can do here is if you know your file extensions, let's say Microsoft Word is a DOCX file extension for 2016. So if I put in asterisk, which is a wildcard meaning any file name, and then the file extension .docx, my list will appear of all of the DOCX files on my drive. And here they all are, and you can see they have all the Word icon. So I've located a list of potential Word files that are out there on that drive now too, in that form, of which Campus Safety Guide is one, and there's many others. And then of course there's a little tool here. I can either escape, or I can go to this little X at the end of my search box to eliminate the search that I typed and go back to seeing everything. And you can delve deeper than that. I'm just trying to give you a head start on some search tools that you can use. So 9B, using File Explorer, how can you find the file? You know, it'd just simply be type campus into the search box for the drive. Type campus. I'll put campus in single quotes here too, just to clarify that we were typing that word out. Number 10, when you close file closure or deletion, what risk do you assume when you don't close out of your files properly?
Loss of data.
Loss of data, very good. Matter of fact, that's actually a good answer, just like that, or I'm going to call it file corruption. File corruption, I'm going to put on that line for 10A. So you should save your files when you're done. You're working on your drive, you save your files, and then you should also close them. Even if they're saved, if you pull your drive out while the file is open, you do risk file corruption or loss of data. How that works is there is essentially a tie between the computer and the file, and if you don't close out of it properly so it can essentially say goodbye, there's a potential that you can lose data. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. In fact, I've done it before many times where I was like, oops, and sometimes I even remember and I put the drive back in and then I save it properly or close it properly. But I'd say maybe 8 to 9 out of 10 times you're probably okay, but that 1 or 2 times out of 10 that you did it, you could lose your data. It's just risky. One of my best examples, just to drive the point home, is I forget sometimes too. A few years back, at the end of class, one of my students was asking me about their grades, and I brought up the grade book in my Excel spreadsheet. And the next instructor was kind of coming into the class, and everybody was trying to get in, and people were trying to get out. I'm like, I got to get out of here. Once I finished my conversation with the student, I rushed too much, and I just pulled it out. Got back to my office, plugged it in, and my grade book was shot. So I was definitely at risk by pulling that out. Luckily, I had a backup copy, so it's good to make backup copies of things if you've worked on things for a long time. And I was able to just recover it that way and not have a lot of stress. But I'm also not always the best either at making backups, even though I've learned the hard way before too. So this things for the course here, be careful to try to keep your life a lot more simple than it could be as if you have some major problems. 10B, a file should be saved and something before it's attached or uploaded to a website.
Saved and closed.
Saved and closed. I'm going to boldface close there. So a lot of my students I found this last fall, so I wanted to emphasize it even more this winter. They were trying to upload their files while they were still open. It does work again sometimes, however, sometimes it does not. And Canvas will just not upload the file sometimes, and you're like, what's happening? Why is it not loading? And it could be that you just haven't closed the file out. So the first thing to think about is, why isn't it loading to Canvas for my assignment? Go back to like Word, if it's a Word document, close the file out, make sure it's saved, close it, then upload it again, and you should be okay. When you get into databases, it's extremely risky too with this class to not have it closed, because when you have an open database, it opens up a ghost file along with the regular database. And if you haven't closed your database out, then you look at your drive, you'll see two databases with the same name. And I've had people upload the ghost file rather than the correct file. And then I have nothing to grade, because the ghost file is just a bunch of garbage. And if it was your access test for databases, it's a problem. So make sure you have closed files before you upload them is good practice. 10C, when you delete files from your removable media, so we're focusing on your USB flash drive here, will they be placed in the recycle bin? They won't be replaced or placed in the cycle bin, so yeah, it's false. As an example, demonstration here, let's say I've got a file. I used this one yesterday, it's just an old file here. Let's say I have a file on my desktop, which is my local drive. This file, by default, if I move it, or if I delete it, it will be moved to the recycle bin. So if I go right click, and I'm going to say delete, my recycle bin is the garbage can up there, and the garbage can is currently empty. But if I delete here, the file disappears from the desktop and it immediately goes into the recycle bin, and it's crumpled paper showing as garbage in the can. If I right click on the recycle bin, I could empty it here, and when I do that, now it's permanently deleted. I can also open it, and I can see what's in the recycle bin. And here's the one that I just deleted, your tentative fall term section thing from last fall for me. And let's say I wanted it back. I'm like, oops, I didn't want to delete it. I can right click, and I can go restore, and it'll restore it to where it was previously at, which is going to be right here on the desktop. So as soon as I hit that, there it is. This is emptied out. So if it's on my local machine, by default, I can retrieve it. By default is the key. Some institutions actually have their settings changed so that things are permanently deleted no matter what. So you do have to be careful depending on where you work. If I'm actually on my drive, so I'm going to take this file from my drive here. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to delete. It's going to say, are you sure you want to permanently delete this file? Your tentative fall 18 section assignment will be deleted. And I'm like, yeah, I do want to delete it. So this shows you that if it's going from your removable, it will be permanently deleted by default. So I'm going to say yes. It does give you a warning. If I go to my recycle bin, there's nothing in there. It's completely gone. The only reason I still have it is I made a copy on the desktop here. And just in case I need that, I'll just drag this back over here, and I've got it again. Number 11, file paths. In the following path, what represents the root directory, what are the folders, and what's the name of the file and the extension of the file. So in this path, this is what's called a UNC file path. What represents the root? You guys know this, I think. Somebody does.
Users?
Mm-mm. However, you're close because you're towards the end that we need to be at. C drive, right. And I appreciate your bravery.
No problem.
I'm always rather have somebody say something. So, C colon is my root. It's just the drive letter with a colon after it. Now, after that, we have a number of folders, of which one is users. And what else do we have? SC238 and documents. These are all folders, so make sure when you're looking at a file path that you realize that those are all folder levels. That's if it's on your local drive or on your flash drive. I'm not counting the complexities of local area network drives here. On a quiz, I'm just going to ask you to break something like this down. So users, SC238, and documents are all folders. Then the file name is class project. And the extension of that file, .docx, which is an extension that applies to any Word document 2007 or newer, but in this course specifically we're learning 2016, so I usually just refer to it as it's a 2016 document potentially for our course. Okay, so I want to navigate to that location to demonstrate where that's at too. So I'm going to go to File Explorer. The C drive is accessible under this PC as we noticed, so I'm going to click on this PC. I'm going to double click on my C drive, which brings me up a folder list for my local disk. And users is one of the folders there. This is a common default Windows folder. So I'm going to double click on users. These are the users for the machine, and SC238 is actually what we're all logged in as. Every time we come into class, we log in. By default, it takes us into SC238 as the user. So I'm going to double click on SC238. Under SC238, every user that logs into the machine gets these things. This is what's called a profile. So desktop, documents, downloads, favorites, etc. So if it's your home computer and your name is John, and you said, hey, my username is John, you log in and you get a folder called John under users, and then your John folder has documents, downloads, whatever. If your wife's name is Mary, then you might have one for her too, so she logs in as Mary. She's got her own personal desktop, documents, downloads, etc. So potentially this particular file that we don't actually have out here, but it's called class project, would be stored under the users SC238, and then I'm going to double click on the documents folder. There's no actual document in there, but in that file path I gave you, it would be located right here. That would be how to navigate to it. Once I've navigated to it, notice my, and I use the loose term breadcrumbs here. I've got this PC, local disk C, users, SC238, documents, all separated by the little arrows. Those are all different levels. I can navigate to any one of those levels or back to one of those levels by clicking that. Also, to see my UNC file path that we just had typed out on the paper, there is a little icon to the left of all this stuff, and if I click that, it collapses the whole breadcrumb thing, and now it actually just reads exactly like we had on the sheet. C:\users /SC238 /documents. Number 12, that file extension docx that we were just mentioning, if I carry on that idea further here, what's its purpose? There's a particular way that I like this worded, so I'll just give it to you. It's
Navigation?
association actually is more what I'm looking for. So to associate a file with an application. The term application is synonymous with the term program. So for 12A, I'm typing out to associate a file with an application. So by having a docx extension, Windows has a list of all the file extensions that are on your machine. docx is one of them. It knows that docx is associated with Microsoft Word, in this case 2016, that's installed on the machine. So if I double click a file that has that extension in File Explorer, it's going to open Word and then open the file. (12B), using File Explorer, how can file extensions be displayed? So I'm going to go to File Explorer. I'm going to go to, let's see here. I might just go to our drive that we created. I'm going to go to Labs for Word, and I'm going to take a look at these. So here's our files that we were looking at last Thursday after we unzipped we extracted our zipped folder. We saw these files in there for our Word labs that we're going to need. None of them have file extensions displayed next to the name because we'll use Bill Gates loosely here. You know, Bill Gates is the CEO of Microsoft. He or somebody in the company decided that it was a good idea to not display the file extensions because they do clutter up things a little bit, and the common user doesn't want to see them. And the trend these days in any type of environment, including web design and stuff, is less clutter. So they took those off. However, they can be beneficial at some times. The file type over here does give me a clue as to what we've got here, like these pictures say JPEG file. However, like Microsoft Word, I've got some information here. If I go to my border between type and size here, I can't quite see all these. You can actually move these borders to see more. It says it's a Microsoft Word 97 to 2003 document in this case. This one's a Microsoft Word document. So there's a difference there. The file extension is the difference. There is a slight difference in the icon too. The older icon has a bigger W in it. So there's little things to notice like that. But sometimes when you're in a more advanced situation, you might need to actually see your file extensions for a minute. So if you go to your View tab on File Explorer, there is a option over here on the right under Show Hide. It says File Name Extensions. I'm just going to check that. And it adds all my extensions on there for me so I can see them. So now these ones that said JPEG, it shows. The one that's a Microsoft Word 97 to 03 document is just a DOC extension without the X. The one that's a regular Word document does have the DOCX. Again, this is very simplistic. If we were in an advanced photo editing or an advanced environment, Microsoft Word, Excel, they actually have multiple file extensions. We're not going to even really touch on them in this course, but you can have like 5, 6 different file extensions for the same application, depending on what type of file you want to use in that application. So it can get confusing, and this is very helpful to be able to display these. So I actually display these most of the time on my personal device. I guess I like the clutter, but I turn them off sometimes too, though. and they can be turned off simply by going to view and then unchecking the box again. So it's as simple as that. So it's the view tab, and then check the file names extensions box is the answer there. 12B. On the view tab, check the file name extensions box. Answer to 12B. On the View tab, check the File Name Extensions box. Number 13, list advantages of using each of the file folder views listed. Large Icons View and Details View. I'm going to do the Details View first, actually, because it's already in Details View. So in this same list, I'm currently in Details View, which shows the name, the date modified, the type, and the size. So an advantage is not only can I see those things, but I can also sort by those. So to answer 13B, for Details View, I'm going to say view and sort by name, date modified, size, and type. View and sort by name, date modified, size, and type. And I want to demonstrate the sort because this is a valuable tool that I use all the time. A lot of people don't know about it. By default, it sorts alphabetically by name for me, but I'm not limited to that idea. I can go to date modified, and at the top, right on the words date modified, if I click that, it's going to sort by date. Let's say I was looking for the one file that I modified prior to this course. Newsletter insert was modified on January 8th, 2019 at 4:24 p.m. So I know exactly what time I modified that, and sometimes, especially for me, I have to be careful on what file I'm uploading. Like I don't want to upload you guys like a fall assignment when it should have been the winter assignment. So I got to check my date, make sure I got the correct one, and so forth. So the date modified can be sorted easily that way. Same thing with type. I generally don't mess with the size, but it is possible to do that. I can sort by name either alphabetically or reverse alphabetically. Same with date and so forth. So the sorting is fantastic. And then the last thing here, large icons view. I'm currently in Details View. If I go to the View tab, we've learned a few things on here in the last couple of days, by the way. We've used the preview pane, which I only really find valuable for that one assignment. Once you start getting those larger, deeper documents, it kind of doesn't really show you what you need to see in that small thing, but it's good for that simple text file. You can also turn your navigation pane on and off, blah, blah, blah. We've seen that we can show file extensions. We can actually customize this. But here's our views that I'm talking about here. So I'm in Details View, and I've got the option of these other ones, and extra large icons and large icons are quite nicely valuable here for a reason. So I'm just going to click on large icons, and it's pretty clear as to why that would be valuable. You can see a preview of the file. So 13A, I'll just put C, or you can say view, a preview, a thumbnail preview. I'll put thumbnail preview of the file. If it's a PowerPoint presentation, a lot of times it'll show you the first slide in the presentation. If it's a picture, it's showing you the picture. depending on the scenario, it'll show you something a lot of times as to what you have. So that's a journey through some things in Windows that I think are important to know about. So far at this point, any questions on what we discussed? Okay. That is going to be part of your first test. So there's a Word Windows test on the second day of that first week of February. I can't remember my dates exactly by heart. But when we have a test on Word and Windows, there's going to be 10 questions based off of this study guide. True, false, multiple choice. And some of the examples, like we talked about, I would have you break down a file path and tell me what are the folders, etc. Maybe what's the root. Nope, it's all taken in Canvas. So no Scantrons in this course. You know, looking back through here, we talked about, I might have spent a little bit too long on those drive letters, but just know what a drive letter might commonly be associated with, because there might be a question on that. How to find your RAM and processor speed by the fact that you're displaying the properties of this PC, and so on and so forth. Just some things to know. Now that we know a few things, the course schedule today was telling you that we were going to work on my IT lab, how to do training and graders. So I'm going to do the how to do training. And I flip-flopped. I changed my mind a little bit. You can see January 22nd says Windows. I'm done with Windows now. But I'll show you how to do graders on the 22nd. But today I want to show you how to do the training, because you've got about a week from Thursday to get your first training done in my IT lab. It was recommended that you have yourself linked into my IT lab by today, but it's not absolutely mandatorily necessary just yet. But you do want to get there some point before next Thursday, so you don't come short up on your assignment. Now, some people elect to do this with me. Other people just want to watch. It's up to you. If you've already got yourself hooked into my IT lab and you want to do it, you can go for it. And there's different ways to get to it. You can link to it through our syllabus that's online in Canvas. I generally just type it in. So I just go up to the address bar and I type in www. Pearson, which is like a pair, Pearson, my lab, and mastering.com. Pearson, my lab, and mastering.com. It'll bring us up to this site. Remember, if you haven't registered, you won't be able to do this particular exercise here. I'm just going to do a demo. We're not going to go all the way through it, but I want to explain how this works. So I'm going to sign in. If you're registered and you've signed in, you should see our course here, and ours is the one that ends in S1613. Looks like you guys are doing a pretty good job, because my information here tells me that 19 of you have enrolled. One of you with unpaid temporary access, and my other class, 20 have enrolled with 4 unpaid temporary access. If you are having trouble with the money, don't forget that before this is due next week, you could enroll with the unpaid 14-day temporary access and get yourself pretty much to the end of the unit. I'd wait till right to the last minute so that you have the full 2 weeks to work on those Word assignments, though, after next week. Once I click on our course link, there's multiple ways to get to the same thing like there isn't anything else, but I'm going to recommend right now going to course materials down here. Takes a minute to load. Course materials come up. We have briefly looked at the first couple here. Actually, I think we went through all three. Getting started with my IT lab actually shows you some videos on what I'm about to demonstrate in class, but it's not exactly my way. It does give you a good overview though. Technology in Action 15th edition, there's no assignments in there. It's just reference for your technology or Tech in Action book. Windows 10 is where we have our first assignment. So I'm going to go to Windows 10. Each chapter in your Office textbook, which starts with Windows, there's one Windows chapter, and then you start into Word, and there's 4 Word chapters. I have not opened up the Word chapters yet. But in Windows, there's one chapter. You get your eText. If you purchased your access code card from the bookstore, you're going to automatically have your eText. If you bought it online and you opted for the eText, you should have access to it here. Videos are available, which is actually a demonstration video of how this assignment would work. Some of my students like to see those, some don't. I do want to let you guys know, let me know if there's any troubles with them. Last semester I didn't have any troubles, but I did have some troubles last year with some videos, if you like to use them. Simulation training is the one that is assigned. That's going to be due next Thursday, so it's a week from Thursday. And by the check mark being there, you know that it's an assignment. If there's no check mark, it's not mandatory. It's just something that's there to help. This one is mandatory, simulation training. Now I'm going to go to click on it, and if it's your personal device, if it doesn't launch, you could have a problem with your pop-up blocker. I did use Chrome, because Chrome is the preferred browser. You can try using other browsers if you want to. I've had people have pretty good success with Firefox. I think I mentioned one of my guys last semester liked using Edge, but some stuff wasn't popping up for him, so I told him to use Chrome. So Chrome is the preferred browser. I'm going to click on the simulation training to launch it. If I have all my pop-up exceptions set, I should have no problem with it launching for me.
What if you don't have the Windows simulation training? On my courses, I have Getting Started with my C-Lab, Technology in Action, and Windows 10.
Windows 10 you want to click on.
Click on Windows 10.
Yep, and then it's the last item in the list there.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then inside here, it gives me instructions on what to do. Now this is a completely pretend environment that you're in. This is simulation, they call it. So there's nothing real about it as far, I mean, it's supposed to look real, but you're not working live in Windows, or you're not working live in Word. You're just working in a browser, and it's acting like you really are there, but you're not. So that's one thing to know about it. Okay, so you're working in a browser. It says to sign into Windows using the Microsoft account for my IT Lab user, and the password is myitlab1234. So that's all I have to do here is follow the instructions on what it tells me to do. So I'm going to click there. It's already got the cursor there, and I have to do it exactly like they've got there. My IT Lab 1234. Just to give you an additional training that's not actually listed here. Some people don't know that this little eyeball at the end of the password, if you hold it down with your left mouse button, it'll actually display what you typed. So if you're not sure what you're typing on a password anytime, that helps. Sometimes you might have a caps lock key on and you didn't realize that caps lock was on, and if you hold that down, you're like, oh, that's what it is. So it does help a little bit. Once I've typed it in, I'm going to hit the arrow, or click the arrow, I should say, with my left mouse. I'm going to get a message over here that says question complete, and it goes on to the next step. It was on 1 of 26, now it's on 2 of 26 down here. I'm going to hit X on this little message up here about saving things. So now I'm on step 2. It was that simple to do 1 of the 26 steps Now, some of the other steps are more complex. This one's got about 2 or 3 steps here, I think, that we have to do. So it first tells us boldface, display the home page of the settings window. There's multiple ways to do that in Windows. In simulation, sometimes it'll let you do the multiple ways, might let you do your way. Other times it won't let you do your way, you got to do it their way. So at this point, I just want to demo. Let's say you were trying to do it your way and it wasn't working. If you do it your way and it works, great. But if it's not, and you're like, I'm sure that works, you might have to do it their way. So I'm going to go down here. There's a tool called Learning Aids. I'm going to click on Learning Aids. And it gives me a chance to either watch video or practice. The majority of my students would rather practice because it actually just shows you what to do.
On the taskbar, in the Notifications area, click the Action Center icon and then click All Settings.
And it gives you a scrolling marquee here to tell you what to click. And different PCs are actually, your PC might be configured differently than this one too, than this pretend one. So I clicked it. Then it's telling me on the taskbar in the notifications area, click the Action Center icon, then click All Settings. So I got to click the All Settings button. It's excuse me, it says practice complete, now try it yourself. So I actually haven't accomplished it yet, I just did some practice. So now I got to do it myself, so I'm going to do it their way. I'm going to go right there and right there. And once I do that, I bring up the settings window and it moved me past the boldface for that one onto the second part of this step. Now it says change the desktop background to the picture butterfly JPEG located in the pictures folder. Close all open windows except for the settings window. Well, earlier I showed you that you could right click and personalize on the desktop. This is doing it through the menus. So we're actually going to go to personalization here, which is going to bring us up that same type of window that I had for the personalization earlier. So there's that familiar window that we saw earlier. And it tells us to set the butterfly JPEG located in the pictures folder. So here it says choose my picture, and there's no butterfly there, and that's because the butterfly is in your pictures folder, which is part of your profile. So remember we saw our profile, desktop, pictures, documents. So I'm going to browse. And once I click browse, it takes me to my pictures folder, and there's the butterfly. So I can either click that and choose picture or double click it. And the butterfly is set as my background. That step is also satisfied now, so it turns gray, moves me on to the next thing. It says change the lock screen image to the picture Bahamas JPEG located in the pictures folder.
I think I got a faulty code, it's not working.
Okay, I can take a look at it when we're done here for you. I'll try to make sure we got enough time. There's a class coming in after us. Lock screen is where we clicked earlier to do that, so I'm going to click on lock screen there on the left. It says to change it to Bahamas, so the same deal, I got to click browse. Here's the Bahamas picture, so I'm going to double click that. Now I've satisfied both picture settings that they want for us for personalization, and I can close the settings window. And I can just do that by the little X in the corner of this hypothetical settings window that's in the middle there. Question complete again. Moves me on to question 3 of 26. And I would proceed through my training as such. Now, important things to know about the way I run the class here with us. Okay, so we've seen a couple of things. The first day of class, I mentioned to you guys for training, which this is, everything's unlimited. You can do as many times as you want. You see this thing over here that says attempts remaining 5? All that means is you have 5 attempts to do something correctly, and if you don't, it starts counting down. 4, 3, 2. If you get down to where you don't have any left, it automatically launches the learning aid for you. And it has you do the practice, and then it goes back to 5 attempts remaining. So it technically is unlimited, even though it looks like it's not. So it's always going to refresh your 5 attempts, so you have unlimited attempts. So that's an important thing to know. You don't have to worry about having limited attempts.
Yeah, when I did it yesterday, there were some questions where I had to take the 5 because the steps were not completing on their own. For example, when it was the filter the files by type, it would not open the menu.
Okay, but when you did the practice, did it show you?
It did, and it took me a couple of reruns of it before it finally opened up for me.
Sometimes it can be.
It can be a bit fickle.
It can be fickle with maybe a delay, your internet connection, your browser. There's a lot of factors.
I was using Chrome.
Yes, sir.
You can just click the save button and come back to it whenever I want to.
Yep, that was something I was going to talk about too here. So I want to look at all these buttons. So for this class, the way I run it, you have to have 100% on the training because you have unlimited attempts and it always shows you what to do. So all you got to do is do what they do. So you need 100% on it. Therefore, my advice is don't skip any steps. There's 26 steps here. This arrow will let you skip to another step, but if you do that, you've missed a step. And here's the golden rule with this class. Don't ever click the submit button here on the training. Never click submit.
It'll submit when it's complete.
It submits automatically when it's complete. If you have to click submit, you are not done. And what's going to happen if you missed one of the 26 steps, it's going to force you to do all 26 over again. So save yourself the grief and just never click submit. So what happens if, like, you get done with number 26, it's supposed to just go automatically. If you did everything in order and you did all of them, you'll get a message that said your assignment's complete, click OK to submit, and you're done. It's that easy. If you get done with 26, it says question complete, and it won't actually give you the message that your whole assignment's complete. You missed a step somewhere, which means you might have skipped one of these. If you did skip one, which again is not recommended, there is a View All button here. And if I click View All, and I'm going to scroll up to show you here, we did the first 2. Here's the 26 steps. Step 1 and Step 2 are done, and because they're done, it says correct. Step 3, we have launched, but we're incomplete on it, and then the rest are not attempted. If any step says either incomplete or not attempted, you can actually click on it and then click launch down here, and it'll launch it at that step. So let's say I did all this stuff, but I missed step 6. And it says either incomplete or not attempted. I could click step 6, I could launch it, I could finish the step, and then when it's done, it'll automatically submit. It doesn't matter that you're on the last step or not, it just matters that they're all done, and then it will submit it automatically. So don't forget about that, because that's the easy way to just go back, fix the one issue you might have. It'll automatically submit when you're done. This button right next to it that says reset, every so often you'll be on one of these multiple things, like it'll have 2 or 3 components to a step, and you think you're doing everything right, and it's just fighting you.
Yeah.
So what you can do, and I've done it before several times myself, is when I get frustrated, I can hit this reset button. It won't reset your whole thing. It only resets that step. So if I'm on step 18 of 26, it's only going to reset step 18, and I can redo step 18 from scratch. It will put me back to the first part of that step, but that's okay sometimes, because sometimes you guys don't print here. That's okay sometimes, because you can print, by the way, in certain instances, but not during lecture. So step 18, I want to go back and reset it. I just go reset, it'll come back, refresh it for me, and then I can start from scratch, and maybe the second time through it'll work. So again, never click submit. I'm going to click that save button now and demonstrate that. So let's say I think with my stomach, so maybe I'm hungry for dinner, and I'm working on this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take a break. So I'm going to click save. It says, are you sure you want to save the assignment for later? You can restart and complete the assignment at any time. Click OK to save your results, or click cancel to return to the assignment. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say OK. It goes out, saves it. It puts this little notation over here. I'm in progress now, but I'm not done. When I'm ready to go back, I just click on it to launch it again. And it will launch to the step that I saved it at. So there I am. I'm on step 3 of 26, and I can continue right from there. So I just kind of like to show you that live so you have some confidence that that feature works pretty well. You saw what the learning aids do. There's a couple other buttons down here. There's a virtual keyboard down there, which will allow you to access a virtual keyboard. In some cases, your laptop might not let you do a keystroke that they're saying to do. Another thing to be aware of is if you have a laptop, and in Microsoft Word there's going to be some commands that say press Control Home to move to the top of the document. That's a multiple keystrokes. Control Home. On your laptop, you might have to use the function feature to use the control key. And you'll see that by like usually a colored notation on your keys on a laptop. So it might be function Control Home to get the same thing that they're asking for as a normal Control Home. See what I'm saying? Or you could try the virtual keyboard. Another thing down here, it keeps track of how good your internet connection is. You should have a good connection at all times while you work on this. There's also a help button and an accessibility button. So that's the overview of a training session. Remember, you got to get 100%. It should automatically submit. Never click the submit button is the main rule out of this.
What is that assignment usually do, the training?
It's due on, today's the 15th, 17th, the 24th of January, a week from Thursday. It's listed on your purple sheet, and it's also listed, I believe, as a due date in Canvas. I don't put the due dates into this facility, into my IT lab, because it's just like I'm doing things 2 or 3 times. So I've already got it here, I've got it in Canvas, so here I just use this as a tool to get out there and get your work done. No questions then on that? Okay, before we go, I want to say a couple more things, so I'm going to save this. How familiar are you guys with pop-up blockers? Okay, what can happen with pop-up blockers? If you don't have your machine configured to allow Pearson My IT Lab to display that, you might click on this link and nothing's going to happen. If that happens in Chrome, you may get a little mark up here. It'll be like a little red mark, exclamation, I think, or orange.
It looks like a window, and it has a red X on
Little-
the corner.
Thank you, because I forget what that thing looks exactly like. So a little red X up there.
Yeah,
And
I had to fight with that yesterday.
you would click on that, and then you would say allow all pop-ups from now on for this particular site. And then you would go back and click it again, and then it should work. That's the easy way to allow pop-ups. Okay, if the pop-ups are still fighting you, this is a bit of an older video, but out here in Canvas, under our course, under Pages, I have uploaded how to configure each browser window for my IT Lab. And again, it's a little bit out of date, but this could help, so I'm just going to show this video. I'm going to do the one for Chrome and not for the others.
In this video, I'll show you how to get Google Chrome working with My IT Lab. When you first sign in to My IT Lab, you may get a message like this, stating that your browser settings don't allow pop-ups. Which is true, because Chrome does not allow pop-ups by default. We need to make a couple of changes to your web browser settings in order for this to work.
Okay, so that little mark that we're talking about is right there. So you actually could click that and say allow all pop-ups for sites whenever you get that, and it should work easy for you that way, but he's going to show you the detailed way.
Click here in the menu and go to Settings. This is an advanced change that we're making, so go to Show Advanced Settings way down at the bottom. This is a privacy setting, so we're going to go into Content Settings and scroll down a little further. We're looking for pop-ups, about halfway down. By default, Chrome will not allow pop-ups from any website, but we need to make some exceptions for the MyITLab website so we can bring up quizzes, trainings, and other various activities. So click on Manage Exceptions. We'll type several in here. Pearson.com, PearsonED.com, PearsonCMG.com, MathXL.com, MyITLab.com, eCollege.com, and www.PearsonMyLabAndMastering.com. These will all be listed below the video as well. Click Done. Click Done again. And you can close your settings window. And now, if we reload this page, we'll be able to sign in without the error anymore. That's it. If you have any trouble, leave me a comment below and I'll try to help you out.
Okay, so this is out there if you need to access that. It is a little bit older, so if you need to ask me questions, just let me know. Otherwise, we're all set.
Good luck with today's lesson.